The Canadian government has officially labeled Samidoun as a terrorist entity. Samidoun, as you may remember, has been behind a lot of the pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel rallies across the country. Now, to chat about this in more detail is Sun political columnist Brian Lilley, who's joining us from the sunshine in Winslow, Arizona. Such a fine sight to see. Brian, before we talk about what you're doing south of the border, let's talk about this designation for Samidoun. Many Canadians say, you know what, it's about time.
Oh, and I'm one of them. I didn't know much about Samidoun prior to October 7th, 2023. But they're based in Vancouver, British Columbia. They've been banned by Germany, declared a terrorist entity there. Same thing with Israel. But suddenly we were allowing this group, which acts as a front for the Popular Liberation or Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a banned terrorist organization for more than 20 years. They're acting as a spokesperson for that group. They are advocating for the release of terrorists. They call them, they're just simply political prisoners, or no, you look up who they're advocating for, it's prisoners. So kudos to the Trudeau government for doing this. Could they have done it sooner? Absolutely, but you do have to make sure that these things are done properly so that they have certain effect. What does this mean? Well, hopefully it means that we're going to see less of them at these public rallies. You're right, they have been front and center in Toronto, they're front and center in Vancouver. That whole Death to Canada chant, long live October 7th, that's all Samidoun. They've been part of the encampments. So being part of that organization now comes with a criminal charge. They won't be able to fundraise. Their ability to disseminate information will be curtailed in this country, and those are all good things.
Brian, on Monday, the Trudeau government made some serious allegations about India that made international headlines. Can you explain what they were?
They accused 6 diplomats, 2 at the High Commission in Ottawa, 2 at the consulate in Toronto, which, interestingly enough, is in the same building as our Post Media headquarters, and then 2 in the Vancouver consulate. So 6 in total, accused them of being involved in coercion, intimidation, violence against Canadian citizens with an Indian background in this country, and link them to the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar more than a year ago. Very serious allegations. The RCMP had gone to India and said, we'd like you to remove the diplomatic immunity from these people because we want to charge them. And at that point, India withdrew. Well, we made those diplomats persona non grata. That's the official term for saying you're not welcome in this country. Before they could be kicked out, India withdrew them.
Brian, the foreign interference inquiry hearing continues. Now, there was a 54-day delay in issuing a warrant to surveil a top Liberal fundraiser, and no one in the government seemed really bothered by it. Now, does this not speak to your point about Trudeau dealing with foreign interference as more of a partisan political issue?
Well, yeah, because he's going very hard on India, and he should. Look, we can't have foreign governments intimidating Canadian citizens, trying to interfere in our elections, or any of those things. But he's gone very hard on India because he's got a voting bloc that he wants to secure and make sure that they're on side. And that is the Sikh community, in particular, that part of the Sikh community that believes in Khalistan, the Sikh separatist movement. So he's pushing hard on that. But when it comes to China, that warrant that had a 54-day delay, that was reportedly a warrant seeking to surveil Michael Chan, longtime Liberal political organizer. He'd been in cabinet at the Ontario level and an MPP. He also was a top fundraiser for Trudeau. And they got the warrant request in March of 2021. They didn't sign it until May. In the meantime, as we heard at the inquiry, Bill Blair, then the public safety minister, was signing other warrants within 4 to 8 days. But this one had a 54-day delay. The Liberals continue to insist there was nothing political about it, but some interesting cross-examination just this morning showing that I think we all have reason to be skeptical about that claim. We should be taking foreign interference seriously, no matter who's behind it. But with the Trudeau Liberals, everything is about electoral politics and their political fortunes.
You know, Brian, many Canadians are receiving their carbon tax rebate checks, but there's still a bit of a fight over whether most of us are better off due to the carbon tax. So, I talked to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, our buddy Franco Terrazzano. He said no. What did the parliamentary budget officer, Yves Giroux, have to say?
He said that 8 out of 10 Canadians get back more than they pay in just the carbon tax. But when you look at the full measure of the carbon tax and what it does to the economy, 6 out of 10 families are paying more. So how can he say that? Well, he takes the government numbers at face value, which I wouldn't do. Because the Trudeau government figures out your rebate based on averages. And so, they say the average Canadian only drives 15,000 kilometers a year. I'm betting, Hal, that you drive a lot more than that. I drive less. So an urbanite like me that parks the car in the basement garage and takes it out every 2 weeks, they're going to get back more, but you're going to be paying more. If you have a larger home, you're going to be paying more in heating, all of those things. But the parliamentary budget officer says, fine, I'll take you at face value with your numbers. And when he does that and he just looks at the carbon tax, he says, yes, okay, the government numbers add up. But we all know we're paying the GST on the carbon tax. We're having lower economic output due to the carbon tax. And those are in the government numbers as well. And so when you take all of that into effect, the GST, meaning the tax on the tax, lower economic activity, lower incomes for many Canadians due to the carbon tax, lost opportunity, he says 6 out of 10 are paying more. This is having a detrimental effect on the incomes and the financial well-being of Canadians, and it's only going to get worse as the carbon tax increases every April 1st between now and 2030.
The Trudeau government's so-called gun buyback program, Brian, is stalled once again. Now, the latest cost is $67 million, and not a single gun has been seized. So what's going on here?
Yeah, this so-called gun buyback. Well, they didn't own them in the first place, so they can't buy them back. I guess you call it a compensation for gun seizure program. It really has stalled. They don't have a plan. It has been put off until late October 2025. They've extended the amnesty that everyone has. These guns were made illegal May 1st, 2020, and you get an amnesty until after the next election. Don't tell me it's not political. Polysuviant, the Polytechnique Remembers organization that has been advocating for greater gun control constantly since the École Polytechnique massacre, they want more guns added to the list. And of course, that didn't go well for the Trudeau government last time. But that's what they're pushing on right now. Simple fact of the matter is how they can add more guns if they want, and it wouldn't change a thing because they don't know how to get them out of your basement and mine. They don't know how to get them out of the gun safes because they've asked the RCMP, can you do this? And they say, we don't have the resources. Can we turn to provincial police in Ontario and Quebec or municipal forces? British Columbia, the Conservative leader there, who very much could be the next premier, he said he will not allocate resources to gun seizures when there aren't enough resources for everyday policing. They've asked the Canadian military to be involved. They said, we can't do it. They asked Canada Post. They said, are you crazy? So they don't know how to get the guns back, but they keep spending money on consultants and companies to try and build something. What exactly? Even they don't know.
Brian, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was asked once again if he'll be stepping down, if he's sticking around. He's been dealing with reports of a coup within his own caucus, and polls say the Conservatives could sweep most of Ontario, including Toronto.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, my riding, Toronto Centre, in the model that says the Liberals would almost be wiped out in Toronto, my riding would stay Liberal, so I'd still have Marcy Ian as my MP. But every other riding, some modeling, and I was cautioned with models, could go Conservative or a few NDP. The latest Abacus data poll has the Conservatives well ahead in Toronto proper, not just the 905 region, not just the suburbs, in Toronto proper. They have them winning. And so keeping seats like Toronto St. Paul's that they stole in the by-election recently. So yeah, Trudeau should be facing calls for him to go. But this coup attempt that we heard about starting last week, apparently 30 to 40 names. Well, nobody's come forward. I've talked to Liberal MPs about this, and They're quietly telling me, yeah, take it seriously. Okay, have you signed? No, I haven't signed. Have you seen this alleged letter? No, I haven't. But, people are really upset. Well, we're in a break week now. This news comes, I believe it broke last Friday. Then we're into the Thanksgiving holiday and then the break week. Nobody's come forward to put their name out. It looks like the gang that couldn't shoot straight, if you want to be honest. So I'm not going to put any stock in it until somebody steps forward and says, I'm behind this letter, and here's the 36 people behind me who support it.
Okay, Brian, you're right now in Winslow, Arizona. I'm reminded of that classic Eagles song, Peaceful, Easy Feeling. Did you stand at a corner, Winslow, Arizona? Did you see a lady in a flatbed Ford driving by and taking a look at you? What happened?
I'm about 2 blocks from a place called Standing in a Corner Park, and they've got a statue of Jackson Browne, who co-wrote the song, and they've got a statue of Glenn Fry at that street corner, and a parked red flatbed Ford truck. There's murals, there's everything else. They really play it up. I'm down here on a Route 66 travel junket, checking out Route 66, and of course, it runs right through Winslow. So it's been fascinating to watch all the American politics at the same time.
Yeah, you've been gauging the political climate there. Donald Trump was in the state campaigning on Sunday, Brian. Kamala Harris was there when you arrived. How's it looking for both the Republicans and the Democrats?
So it's going to be interesting. My take on it right now is I think Donald Trump wins presidential in Arizona. He would take their 11 electoral college votes. But I think there's a Senate race on right now, and it looks like that's going to go to the Democrats. And then there is a constitutional amendment that it seems to be angering activists on both sides, but it looks like it's going to pass. It's on abortion, and it would guarantee access to abortion, but with limits. And so people that don't want any abortion are upset. People that want no limits are upset. But, so it's a very mixed thing. And when you hear, well, they'll vote for Trump and for a Democrat in the Senate and on this abortion thing, it sounds all mixed up. But, this is becoming a purple state. It was a traditionally red state. It's becoming purple. And, on the presidential side, to give you one example, housing prices in Phoenix are up by 47% in the last 4 years. That's one reason I think Trump is going to be winning, because the Biden administration hasn't handled the economy well, and everyone's talking about how bad the economy is. And so Phoenix and Scottsdale area, that's the reason that Biden won by just 10,000 votes last time. And it's probably the reason Trump will win this time.
What's interesting is I see a lot of tweets, or I guess posts on X, of people slamming Trump, saying he's a racist, people on the Democratic side of things. But then a few tweets later, I see a lot of black families supporting Donald Trump. So, it depends upon the side of the fence you're on. Now, Brian, a story you reported on is that Trump appears to be receiving a lot of support among Hispanic and Latino voters, even though he campaigns to crack down on illegal immigration.
Yeah, he came to the state on Sunday and he was hitting hard on illegal immigration, and he's getting support among Hispanic and Latino voters who say the same thing. Yeah, we're worried because there are Venezuelan gangs that are coming across that are using the mass migration north as a way to get their people into the country. These are not crazy statements that Trump is making, and people can see it on the ground, and then they see that their media doesn't report on it. So depending on the poll, Trump is getting between 40 or 47%. In that range among Hispanic and Latino voters. Some polls have him ahead of Harris among those voters, and especially among people over the age of 35. So it's going to be fascinating to see. That's just within Arizona. Of course, you'd have to check out elsewhere. But, this is an area with a very high Latino population, and a good portion of them are backing Donald Trump, even with his stand on immigration, or perhaps in part because of it.
Just from your experience, what you've seen down there so far, Brian, how much stronger are the Democrats now that Kamala Harris has taken the reins from Joe Biden?
Well, you just have to look at the polling and where things are going. Before Biden stepped down, Virginia, which was solidly Democrat, was becoming a swing state. She's brought that back into their fold. I just saw a YouTube ad before coming on with you of her making a plea saying we're tied. So she's been able to bring some states back. In other areas, she's losing ground, but she's made the race competitive. And if you recall, just before Biden was being shoved out the door, he was losing bigly, as Trump might say, and so that has really changed, with her stepping in.
I thought with Trump it's more huge. But bigly works too. Political columnist Brian Lilley, thanks for joining us and standing down at Winslow, Arizona.
Thank you.